What's going on, everyone? I'm your host, the Carolina Collector, and this is going to be a very important topic for my fellow hobbyists and card collectors out there, whether you're into baseball, football, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to take a look at this, and there's going to be a lot of information. I'm going to try to pack it into a nice, neat little video for all of you. So full disclosure, I've talked about this on the channel. I did a little bit of an experiment with Kurt's Card Care, and man, the backlash still continues, but this will only solidify the position with many of us, and I am still fairly new to all of this. You know, I used to collect cards when I was younger. I stopped that years ago. I got back into it, and it's just been a dumpster fire, you know, of things that I just simply still can't believe what people are willing to do just to make an extra buck in their pocket. You know, unfortunately, in our society, money has become the root of all evil. And when people strive to acquire more of this, it brings out the worst in human nature, unfortunately. You know, I'm not rich, but I'll leave it like this. Financially, I'm okay, but I don't lord myself over people because of that. I'm just an average Joe trying to enjoy a hobby. And when I sell my sports cards online, it's because I got doubles, triples, quadruples, or I just don't have the room for it, and I try to make things cheap. Especially now, and I've kept my word. I'll start off really, really low with my bids, and then you decide, the public decides what you're willing to pay for that stuff. Even the slabs I've sold so far. And I thank you for all of that, for kind of like helping me to become a better collector and a better seller as well. And I've taken, you know, some of your advice, listing certain cards as buy it nows. And it's been a huge help. You make me a better seller and a better member of the community, so to speak. And I hate using the C word, but what can I do? But I no longer use this stuff. I was able to track down a brand new tin to complete this set, and I'll explain why I'm doing that, because you never know what's going to come down the road. Now, allow me to establish some credentials. I do have an LLC. This is the certificate or articles of organization for my LLC from North Carolina. This is available for public view, as a matter of fact. I believe I've actually looked myself up, and you will see it as part of the public record. So I am an official LLC by North Carolina's laws. By law, I have to have one of these, which is, I actually have two of these, by the way. The North Carolina and federal labor law poster, which means, you know, this thing talks about job safety, minimum wage. If I have more than 2 employees, let's just say if I decide to hire someone, I would have to pay workers' comp and have, you know, at least some sort of insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But because I work on my own and I have my own health coverage, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But I'm required by law to have this, so I have 2 copies of that. Also, I put in 13 years as a journeyman plumber in Plumbers Local Union number 1. There's my union card. And the reason why it says retiree is because of the damage that was done to my body and my person as a result of volunteering at the World Trade Center from September 12th to September 16th, 2001. But the education that I gained as a journeyman plumber is vital even in my life today, because I have to be careful with my health. But I did a 5-year apprenticeship. I've worked on multiple water systems. I've worked in colleges and high schools and things like that. Even on new construction sites, you know, you get taught. And in some cases, I believe at this point, most journeymen, even the apprentices, I believe, are required to have at least, you know, an OSHA 10. I am OSHA 30 certified. I did this recently for the sake of my business. Even though it's a little excessive for a home business, I still did it anyway just to bolster my education. And it teaches you things just like what I learned in trade school for 5 years about job safety and tripping hazards and falling hazards. Chemical exposure, how to deal with fires, different type, you know, how you can identify different types of fire extinguishers and what they do, and when you actually come in contact with chemicals, whether you're touching them physically or you ingest them, etc. So I think my credentials are in well order here. I am no expert, not trying to claim to be an expert. This is just based on education and experience. So my word is not gospel. My word is not the final word. Do your own homework, do your own research. These are just opinions based on my experience. So, I did an experiment here on the channel with Kurt's Card Care, where I took a bunch of nuts, bolts, screws, etc., and took the wax, which unfortunately, this safety data sheet is strictly for the spray only. I'm sure that an SDS will be coming out for that wax. I would believe so, because you can't release this without releasing an SDS for that. What is an SDS according to OSHA? It's a safety data sheet. It's an ingredients list of chemicals or gases or whatever have you that are inside, whatever it is. It could be, like in my experience as a journeyman plumber, I used MAP gas to braze and soft solder, or oxyacetylene, which are basically separate tanks, oxygen and acetylene, so that this way you can weld or braze or cut steel, what have you. There are certain ingredients that are contained within one or two of those items where ingredients have been added to create an artificial smell, because like with carbon monoxide does not have an odor. It's undetectable unless you have a carbon monoxide detector, a physical one, which I believe now is required pretty much everywhere these days, because people were dying for no reason at all. At least it was believed that they were just dying for no reason. Turns out that they had issues of carbon monoxide. It's like the exhaust from your car, for example, that contains lots of carbon monoxide. But now we have detectors for that to make our lives a lot safer. So there are certain ingredients that are put back into that to make it detectable. So in my experience, and it's going to be relevant for this conversation, working as a journeyman plumber, brazing, soft soldering, having to cut plate steel or Q-deck or whatever have you, based on what my particular career was involved with. When it comes to oxyacetylene or MAP gas, there's an ingredient called mercaptan that's in those containers that basically creates like a rotten egg smell or a really stinky smell, so that this way, if you accidentally leave the valve on, you can actually smell it, which means you need to prevent that from becoming a fire hazard or an explosion hazard. So they add these ingredients so that you're able to detect them through, with your nose, and also by taste. So that's where this one particular, I believe section 3, if I'm looking at this correctly, talks about, because I'm going to break down the 4 ingredients that were found in Kurt's Card Care's spray. Again, not bashing the man, not defaming the man, not going to make fun of him. I'm not going to disparage him. I know a lot of people have done that in the past. I refuse to do that because it takes away from the conversation and the opinions I'm about to offer. You want to go make fun of him and all that stuff, you can do that. I want to focus on the facts only. So we are going to focus on the product. And the SDS, or safety data sheet, especially a lot of information is from OSHA, is in the proper. So it tells, it gives you flammable warnings and stuff like that, or warnings where if something is flammable, or it can be lit by fire or whatever it is, or it can be like a potential explosive or what have you. Again, I'm a layman. I might not be laying this out, like most professionals would, but I'm just speaking like the way I speak. Listen, I'm a normie. What do you want from me? But so there's certain ingredients that can be flammable or can cause a flame or an explosion, what have you. There could be chemicals in there to the touch or the taste. If you ingest it, it could unalive you, basically. So there's warnings about that. Phone numbers you can contact, what you should do immediately, right then and there on the spot. So it's in the proper. But there was one section I really wanted to focus on, and that was section 3, which I've blown up to this here. And that's what's in the spray. And I'm going to read this off, and I'm going to give you my opinions as to what I think this is. So, pardon me. The 4 ingredients contained within the spray: non-hazardous ingredient, not classified. So there is no classification for this particular ingredient, and I have an opinion about that and how much by volume. So you have W/V, which basically means by volume. What percentage? It could be micrograms, could be in liters, it could be something like that. And it basically says trade secret. I'll show you the piece of paper once I read through it. Then the second ingredient is isopropyl, and it does have a listing as to the identification of what this ingredient is, and then it gives you a breakdown of the hazards that this particular ingredient contains. trade secret, ethanol denatured, same thing, and then proprietary ingredients and preservatives, not classified trade secrets. So we have those 4. There you have it. You can pause it and you can read this yourself. So we're going to focus on the 2 obvious ones. Isopropanol, that's rubbing alcohol, more or less. Flammable liquid, eye irritant, etc., can also be, an irritant if you breathe it in, because when you do spray it, it creates a mist. And if you're sensitive, like I am, I got issues with my lungs as a result of being, at the Trade Center post 9/11 from the 12th to the 16th. There was a lot of bad stuff on that site. So it wasn't what we just touched. It's not just what we breathed in. It's what we touched. It's what we came into physical contact with as well. Remember, there were a lot of god-awful things that were there. I'm trying to be respectful. I don't like being too descriptive for the sake of the families and those of you who might be watching who have PTSD, if you were down there or even if you were military. I don't want to get too specific with the things that I saw, but suffice it to say, it was not nice. And plus, I want to be respectful too. So it lists that. And he has it listed, or at least OSHA on the SDS has it listed as a trade secret. That's rubbing alcohol, essentially. But here's the thing. What kind of rubbing alcohol? Is it 75%? Is it 90%? When you go to like Walmart or Target or something like that, you'll find different percentages with these rubbing alcohols that you could buy over the counter. So it doesn't say that. And it also doesn't say how much of that particular rubbing alcohol is contained within Kurt's Card Care. Is it a drop? Is it 2 drop? How many microliters is it? What is it? What's in there? So we don't have a percentage as to how much of this is rubbing alcohol. Again, it could be 25%, it could be 10%, it could be 5%. We don't know. It doesn't say that. Then you have ethanol denatured. This is just like what I said in this video, where sometimes you have to add an ingredient to make sure that there's some sort of detectable odor, smell, or what have you, or would create a bitter taste. Because if a child were to get a hold of this thing right here, and I'm going to show mine on camera, if a child were to grab a hold of this, or if a dog saw this and they start gnawing away on it and they ingested this, I'm sure this chemical was added to create a foul taste or a foul odor to try to dissuade any child or animal from actually ingesting this thing. So I believe that that's what that's for. Now, again, it says trade secret. Again, flammable liquid, eye irritant, etc. Trade secret. So there's no percentage to how much of that is in there. When I did my original experiment, even now, which I'm not going to do, when you open this up, pardon me, it has a very almond smell to it, a very pungent smell. And then we have the 2 ingredients that there's no info on, and that's non-hazardous ingredient and proprietary ingredients, detergents and preservatives. Now, I have opinions for this. Let's focus on the non-hazardous ingredient because I think this one is an easy one. This could be one of 2 things, in my opinion. It can either be distilled water or water that was put through the reverse osmosis process. Distilled water, basically, in a nutshell, is like if you boil water and you actually funnel off the steam into another container or a vessel, basically all you're getting is pure H2O. Now, obviously, if you're in your home or in some other setting that's not sterile, it's never going to be 100% pure. You'll get close, but distilled water essentially means that you're moving oxygen and hydrogen over into this vessel here, and whatever remains are all the minerals and all that stuff that were left behind, like in New York City's and New York State's drinking water. There's fluoride. They use bleaching components, etc. You have natural things that are in there that come directly from their water source from upstate New York. So there are going to be things that are in there, and when you distill water, it basically leaves all that behind, and then you have just the hydrogen and oxygen in there. So I believe it could either be distilled water, which most likely I almost want to say it is, or it could be water that was used through reverse osmosis, like Dasani water, for example. Basically, it's untreated water. Again, it could be tap water or what's called potable water. That's a very specific term. So potable water most likely, could be used to be pushed through a membrane, and whatever remains, the yield will be purified water, purified. And everything left over, of course, will be discarded or reused for something else or what have you. But basically, that's what reverse osmosis is. You're pushing water through a membrane, and the yield that you get back, I forgot what the ratio is between both of them, excuse me. But essentially, that's what that is. And at the end of the day, it's supposed to be pure water. So I'm wondering, is it a combination of those two? Is it both? I would have to think distilled water would be the prime choice, because you can go to Walmart right now, go to the baby section and get distilled water. If you're going to use reverse osmosis water, you're looking at Dasani, which is like a little more expensive. I would think if I were Kurt, if I was trying to save on overhead costs, it's most likely, in my opinion, distilled water. I think. Again, this is my opinion now. I'm not an expert. Just based on my experience. Proprietary detergents and preservatives. That could be anything. Now, if the goal is to clean cards and to get like these inks and the glue, for example, like isopropanol, rubbing alcohol, much like WD-40 actually can remove glue. I don't know how many of you grew up in New York City like I did, even some places here in North Carolina. If they see abandoned cars or cars have been in accidents or whatever, they tend to put like a blaze orange sticker on the windshield or the window or somewhere on the car. And if you try to peel that off, there's going to be residue. So there are chemical components contained within WD-40 and rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. If you spray it directly to that sticker, the glue will begin to deteriorate. It starts to eat away at it. There's a chemical reaction. So with these proprietary detergents and preservatives, detergent to me means some type of soap or some type of whatever have you. And the only thing that I can come up with that might be in here, there might be a little bit of dish detergent in there, I would have to say, because the only thing that really works on cleaning oil and grease off of things is dish detergent, especially like Thanksgiving, for example. One of the most powerful soaps that we have in our arsenal is, especially when it comes to cleaning our bodies, washing our hands, etc., is dish detergent. I would think that there would be some dish detergent in this, but I think the parts per million are so tiny that I don't think it's relevant. But again, the goal is to clean the card. So, I mean, I would think it would have to be a detergent, at least a dish detergent of some type, or something that would be used on your hands. I mean, right in front of me here, if you're going to use something on your hands, the one thing that's mostly liquid is the antibacterial foaming soap from Dial or whatever have you. See, mine, I have the Dial soap foaming stuff. So, and because this thing is clear, it begs the question, what type of soap is he putting in here? Again, see, we don't know because trade secret, not classified. And then, the smell, it has a very almond smell. And again, that's indicative of the ethanol denatured. I think I've gone into that already, excuse me. So clearly we're dealing with soaps, we're dealing with rubbing alcohol, we're dealing with chemicals that are meant to cause someone to detect that it's either open, it's designed not to be drank or snorted or ingested. So all of this makes sense. But why did it take all this time for this to be disclosed? As I think pressure from the community has started to bear down. Now, again, in my opinion, I stopped using this stuff a long time ago, and I did experiment with it. Again, I'm no doctor, I'm no chemist or anything like that, but there's too much risk. And again, like I said, I'm an LLC. I'm not willing to put my business at risk using this stuff. There are too many examples out there of this stuff being used on autographs and cracked out slabs to be reassessed by PSA and have reholdered just to get, a higher grade, destroying autographs. And now, in my opinion, when you put a film of wax on something, it solidifies, basically, until it wears out through natural use, like on your automobile. Now, over time, who's to say that wax don't crack off and break off and become brittle? I showed that in the experiment. And I know some idiots are going to nitpick, well, you put too much on. That's not the point. The point is to show that this wax does dry and does become crusty. So it really does nothing for the card except to give you a temporary solution to a problem which can't be fixed, like print lines, for example, and track marks. Unless you put physical fingerprints on there, and I've showed that on camera here on my channel, when I open up hundreds of those Topps Chrome Mitchell & Ness cards, you do see tire treads on there. I guess that's the machine pushing cards out like this. And those you can easily wipe off with a microfiber cloth and a dab of water or something like that. But after that, you know, you're essentially putting a layer of something on the card, or you're taking these chemicals that could potentially be absorbed into the card and cause the card to swell. Why do you think he presses his cards between two pieces of foam and two pieces of plastic or glass or whatever that is with alligator clips? You know, it's to prevent the card not just from wilting, but also you're trying to stop it from swelling up. If you don't believe me, I'm going to do this right now. This is called capillary attraction. When you take a liquid to a piece of paper, there's a lot of air contained within these fibers. There's nothing really that can stop that. That's just the manufacturing process. But actually, you know what? Just for the sake of this video, I think it's easier to use my Red Bull. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dab just a little bit. Okay, so here's the paper towel. I'm kind of winging this right now. So I'm going to throw a little bit of my Red Bull onto my kitchen countertop. That's a little more than what I wanted. Okay, so immediately, as soon as I put it to the paper towel, what happened? That Red Bull is being absorbed into the paper towel and will travel. So you can see as the Red Bull is being absorbed into the paper, it travels up into the paper. That's capillary attraction. Look it up, folks. So if you're spraying this stuff onto even a chrome card, remember that card is still some form of paper or cardboard. So if you spray that spray onto the edges of a card, even in a junk wax era, there is potential for that card to swell. So the reason why he compresses that is not just to stop it from wilting and to try to squeeze it out like a sponge. It's because the card will swell up and expand. And I would hope that PSA or SGC or somebody is watching this video, because that might be one of the ways to detect whether or not these cards have been sprayed with spray. I mean, obviously, once it dries out, it's going to maintain whatever form it has. Obviously, when it shrinks, and it's shrinking, basically. You've already wetted the card from its you've already soaked it down. So now the card is already like this in its natural form. When you soak it, it expands. And then when it dries, it contracts, and that's what causes it to wilt like this. So that could be one of the things to detect if you're trying to see if somebody's actually trying to submit a card that's been soaked. Now, there are some cards, like chrome cards, sometimes they come right out of the package, distorted, which I'll show you right now. Pardon me. So I showed this on camera already. You know, I did an off-camera box break. I was too busy with Thanksgiving and accidentally deleted my Topps Chrome 2024 update jumbo box break. And this is how the cards came out. I'm not even squeezing them. You can see that's not me putting pressure this way. That's just how the cards came out. So there is a natural process once these cards are made that they tend to, you know, wilt a little bit. But the wilting gets to such a point on junk wax that the card will actually distort on all four corners and find its way back to the center. So that could potentially be something that could be used to detect whether or not these cards are dunked in a bowl with his stuff. So, and then again, you're dealing with this, where's that piece of paper? Oh, right here. So we're dealing with proprietary detergents, preservatives, and two different forms of alcohol. So, you know, when you're using, again, I mentioned if you get one of them Blaze Orange stickers on your windshield because, you know, your car's been on a property for too long or what have you, they're going to slap that sticker on there. Or like if you have bumper stickers and it leaves behind a residue, you can actually put this on there and it'll eat away at that glue. Now, who's to say when you put the stuff on there, it doesn't eat away at the ink, especially on junk wax cards or the gold foil on numbered parallels, for example. Who's to say that this stuff doesn't react to that gold foil or some of the components of some of these inserts and parallels and what have you, in particular, like anything that has gold foil on it. Now you're spraying this stuff. Not only would it probably affect that, but it would probably be absorbed into the card as well, because the back of the cards are not chromium. They are made of a shiny cardstock, but then again, the whole four corners of the card or four sides of the card are exposed. So you don't know. And then again, somebody who's using this, who's sensitive, who has asthma or breathing issues or COPD, I'm like everybody else. I lean into my stuff. Even when I do my reviews and box breaks and my toy reviews, you kind of have to lean into it like I'm doing right now, with this SDS in front of me, right? So now you're taking this stuff and you're spraying it. That turns into a very light mist. What happens if you breathe in that rubbing alcohol? You're going to get a burning sensation in your eyes, your nose, your mouth. You're going to get the foul taste, and now it's going to be on your fingers. Even after it dries, there's going to be some type of remnant left over, and you have to wash your hands and all that stuff. So with all that being said, this is a very relevant SDS that came out about Kurt's Card Care. Again, I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not the arbiter of card collecting. You do what you want to do with your stuff. I'm going to do what I'm going to do with the things that I do. As far as my card sales are concerned for my customers, I'd rather my customers be safe, especially now that I have this blown up. Now that I have a copy of this for myself, especially these ingredients. It makes me a better person as far as selling these cards, a better salesman, so that this way I don't put my customers in danger. Because let's just say one of you buys one of my sports cards and you get it to your home, and now you got that card and you have a child that has like some sort of rare disease. You always have to think beyond the extreme or beyond the limits, and they come in contact with this or they smell it and they have like some sort of reaction. There's also other consequences involved with some of this stuff. I know I'm kind of like, I'm trying not to fearmonger here or anything like that, but that's why OSHA exists. The prevention of injury. That's basically what that all is. To keep you aware of your surroundings and the things you're touching and eating, ingesting, wearing, all of that stuff. Even the stuff here. When you get it, it's got warning labels on it and all that kind of stuff. How to handle it, how to treat it, what to use on it to clean it, what not to use. A lot of these jerseys say don't use fabric softener, in particular, like my Bayern Munich jerseys, because of the nature of the numbers that are on, and especially the marquees that are on them. They're made out of like a rubber or plastic, and that detergent, when you put an acid and then a base and you do that multiple times, it's going to wear away on that stuff. And it could also yellow your jerseys and whatnot because of the chemicals that are in there. So whatever anyone thinks about this, these are chemicals. Kurt's Card Care, as far as the spray, uses chemicals. There would be no SDS with something like this in there if there weren't chemicals. And now we're aware that there are at least two. And everything else, in my opinion, or I should say the other two things are of my opinion that I believe. If I were Kurt, I would most likely be using distilled water. That sounds reasonable to me. And then you would have to have some sort of soap in there to make sure that, because he shows that in his videos, when he dunks his cards, certain soaps react almost immediately to grease and oil. I would have to think that's some sort of dish detergent or dish soap. That's what I think, because, environmentalists and people that care about animals, and I give them a lot of respect. I'm not one of these tree-hugging, left-wing psychopaths. But when it comes to like oil spills and toxic, chemicals being put into our oceans and stuff, I do kind of care about that. I had a career dealing with waters, so, that's why I would never swim in New York beach water. If you knew what was in that water. Anyway, but all of this stuff can potentially have consequences. Will it hurt you or anything like that? That's not for me to say, because not everybody's different. Not everybody's body is different, excuse me. And not everyone is the same. Let me rephrase that. Not everybody reacts the same to certain things or outside influence. So I have no opinion with that. But you still have to exercise with an air of caution, because, if that goes airborne and you're sensitive to dust and stuff and you have asthma or COPD, this could probably hurt you. If you got issues with your eyes, this can probably hurt you. If you have overly sensitive skin, and there are people that do have skin conditions, this could probably hurt you. But again, that's just my opinion. The unnamed ingredients in here, I would have to believe it's some sort of dish soap or some sort of aggressive type of soap that will remove oil and grease. And I would have to say, the primary ingredient, that non-hazardous ingredient, I would have to say is distilled water or water using reverse osmosis. So that's my opinion on all of this. Again, I'm not an expert. This is just based on my experience. Again, I am OSHA 30 certified. One more time, you can look up these numbers, you can call them, whatever have you. There's my union card with the amount of, experience that I have working in the union. Believe me, I got sick plenty of times working on that site. And of course, me being at the World Trade Center like I was. As a matter of fact, full disclosure, I am an example of what happens when you're exposed to chemicals and irritants and all sorts of things like that. Let me see. You know what it is? It's just this has certain ID numbers on there. I'm not willing to share. Give me one moment here. Because again, I want to be fully transparent. So let me see. I would have to do this in a certain way. I just don't have the time to go back and redo this video again. So I'm just going to cover what I think are the most relevant parts of this, because I really don't want to dox myself when it comes to that. I think you guys can understand that. So I'm going to double cover this with my... So here, for example, there's my prescription ID card from the World Trade Center. Oh, it still shows. The World Trade Center Medical Monitoring Program right there. Here's the medical card itself. And again, I'm trying not to dox myself here, but there you go. I just want to make sure it doesn't shine through. So there you have it. This is through Sedgwick. So I am a living example of what happens when you are exposed to toxins and chemicals. So for myself, that's another reason why I stopped using this stuff, because it could potentially hurt me, Just like with the furniture polish that some internet trolls out there want to, nitpick, but of course they don't watch the videos afterward following up with the fact that I said I don't use that stuff no more. But that's the internet for you. It's called willful ignorance. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this all up, folks. Again, I am no expert. My word is not final in this. In other words, I'm not the end-all, be-all arbiter of this sort of thing. You have to decide what's best for you, as I decide what's best for me. But in my opinion, clearly there are some related dangers to some of this stuff. I believe the pressure that's on him to release this stuff is what caused him to put out an SDS, which I give him credit for that. I'm not going to bash him for that. But just use a little due diligence. And to the grading companies out there, for example, that's why I showed my article of organization for myself, because now if I sell a card to somebody out there that's got this stuff on there, I'm going to be held liable for that. And let's just say if I sell that in a PSA or SGC sleeve, PSA and SGC will be held liable for that. It's just not worth it. Now, you want to do something for I have to leave the door open, because I know people out there are going to nitpick. They're gonna cherry pick and whatnot. You can always refer back to this video. You want to put it on your personal collection. You do what you want. With some of the collectibles that I have, I've kit bashed a couple of my Transformers up on my shelf to make the best one Autobot or Decepticon toy that I could. For example, the Hegemon. I can actually get it right now and show you. This is one of my knockoff Megatrons. I think I showed them on camera already. This is a kit bash from two Megatrons that I owned. One I sold off on eBay, and I let them know but this is a long time ago, that here's my Hegemon. I kit bashed one Megatron, and I was able to rebuild the second Megatron. So essentially what I'm saying, excuse me, is I part swapped. And I made myself the best representation of G1 Megatron that I can get, because as you know, our goofy gun laws don't allow for toy guns anymore. Megatron, unfortunately, is at the apex of all of that. But I wanted a really, really good G1-esque Megatron that transformed into a gun. Hegemon fulfilled my needs with that. So I kit bashed two of these. I sold off the other one and I kept this one for myself. In other words, it's my damn Megatron, or Hegemon in this case. It's my Hegemon, my Megatron. I'll do what I want with it. I have no plans on selling it unless, God forbid, financially, I fall apart or I explode or implode. But I have no intention on selling this thing because it's mine. You do what you want with your stuff. You do whatever have you with your stuff. If I was wearing my Aaron Judge jersey right now from Nike, this is my Don Mattingly Majestic replica. If I was wearing my Aaron Judge Nike jersey, the away jersey, which I think I showed on camera, if I want to put patches on it, if I want to put the World Series patch, even though they lost, I can do that. It's mine. But, when it comes to other people and selling your stuff to other people, that's where I would be concerned. The lack of transparency and honesty has run rampant, especially in the card collecting hobby with CT scanning, X-raying, card cleaning and all this stuff. It's very hard to know who's honest and who's not. And, when I do my card sales, and I just lost a couple subscribers talking about this sort of thing, as a matter of fact, but that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is people's safety, including my own, and liability. I don't want to be liable for anything that happens with stuff that I sold because I want to be as transparent as I can, and I try to avoid using stuff like this. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for PSA to get sued because someone decided to crack open one of these and put the stuff on there and then had it reholdered, and now you got all that crusty wax floating around in there, and somebody could turn around and say, hey, PSA, what the hell is this? But now that we're aware of what's going on and we have things like this available for all of us to see, hopefully it'll make you, and I'm going to end it with this. You have the capability of making critical decisions. Make the right one. That's all I have to say. I have no opinion whether or not you should use this. You do what you want with your stuff. For me, it's not worth it. And that's that. Everyone, take care. God bless. Stay safe. If you're interested in supporting the channel, click on the description box below. You'll see a link to my eBay store, the Carolina Collector 001. More videos to come. Take care, everyone.